Josh Hawley of Missouri had a pretty good moment, and I want you to watch it.
You say that it's not what the agency is doing. I mean, you would say that this is not this sort of activity, the violation of the First Amendment is not what CISA ought to be doing. Is that fair to say?
I'm saying I don't have knowledge of that.
Well,
by the way, real fast, what they're talking about is federal government agencies being involved with coaxing social media companies to monitor and eventually censor everyday Americans for speaking our opinion if it's at odds with what the federal government wants you to be thinking or saying. It's George Orwell. It's censorship. It's a violation of the First Amendment. Court after court after court has found this to be true. And here's a member of one of those agencies just sort of, dodging and deflecting the reality of the situation. So enter Josh Hawley.
Here's, I guess, my point to you, Director Brior. I appreciate the work that you do and your long service, record of service to this country. I just think it's important that this body sends the message to every agency that was involved in this. It is a serious thing to violate the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. It is a very serious thing. There is nothing more foundational to our democracy than the freedom of speech. And what these courts found is the federal government systematically, not accidentally, not oops, we went too far, systematically over a period of months and years set out to violate the First Amendment speech of ordinary Americans, including those in my home state of Missouri. And this is all on the record. In fact, my state brought the suit. So that's a pretty big deal. And I'm pretty upset about it. You're not the first person I've asked about it, and I promise you, you won't be the last. But I just want to send the message, and maybe you can take this message back to your agency, that this is not acceptable behavior, not by a long shot. If the federal government can tell people and can use the most powerful corporations in the world, to shut down speech it doesn't like on a variety of topics, elections, COVID, school boards, the Hunter Biden laptop story. I mean, pick it. There is so much censorship that these courts have found. We've got a serious problem that goes right to the heart of our democracy. And that's a serious issue for me.
Yeah, well said. And by the way, let's just be clear here. All of these stories that were censored and shut down through the bullying tactics of these federal agencies, you know what stories we're talking about. Russian collusion. We were right. Origins of COVID-19. We were right. Hunter Biden laptop story. We were right. The effectiveness of masks during a pandemic. We were right. The effectiveness of the vaccine, which isn't really a vaccine. And again, I'm just quoting the federal government, who has acknowledged that if you get the shot for COVID-19, it actually doesn't protect you from getting it or spreading it. Those are facts. Check it with the CDC. We were right. And all of that and a whole lot more was censored because of it. And when I say we, I mean right of center websites like ours. We did our own reporting. We reported the truth, and then we were bullied and censored. And I'm glad that Senator Hawley is upset about it. I have two questions. Why aren't more of his colleagues as upset? And why isn't this guy who works for an agency of the federal government, every single employee of the federal government, when they're sworn into office, they take an oath to protect and defend the Constitution. And I don't think this guy's even read the thing, because the First Amendment is pretty clear. Why is my voice cracking? I get upset. I get very emotional. All right. Little bit more from Josh Hawley, though. I'm sure you've seen the stories about Border Patrol agents who were supposed to be doing the hard work, federal law enforcement officers that go well beyond the border, who are supposed to be doing the job of finding the bad guys and putting them behind bars. They've now been diverted from their tasks so that they can, help babysit down on the border. Senator Hawley entered into the questioning about that yesterday.
Let me just ask you, given the unprecedented surge in illegal immigration that we're seeing, let me ask you two things here, time permitting. The first one is, we've had multiple DHS whistleblowers who are special investigators within DHS come forward to my office, and I think others, and allege that they were pulled off of their assignments investigating child abuse, child trafficking, fentanyl. They were pulled off of that and sent to the southern border in order to perform, in their words, menial tasks. I just want to know, have any FPS officers, to your knowledge, been reassigned to the southern border to help with migrant processing?
Yes, sir. We do have a number of FPS officers that are supporting CBP at the southern border in 2 locations. And that's going on today.
When you say assisting with processing?
Not processing, let me explain what they're doing. So the Border Patrol, the goal is for us to support the Border Patrol so they can go back to do the work of the border. So our officers are transporting people to hospital appointments, to medical visits, to emergency rooms that may need for treatment. So the Border Patrol doesn't have to do that. They can focus on the border, and we're supporting them and escorting people to these appointments.
Federal law enforcement officers are being used as Lyft drivers right now. And I assure you, it's costing the taxpayer a lot more than the aforementioned Lyft costs, or maybe even Uber. I don't want to side with one or the other, but that's what they're doing. They're being diverted to be able to drive people to their medical appointments. This is Biden's Department of Homeland Security. You wonder why there's such a criminal element in this country and why crime rates are so high. Because the cops are being used for Uber drives.
If I could just ask, where are these folks coming from who are transporting your agents? Where are they being taken from? If they're now running people back and forth to the hospital and appointments and so forth?
Various locations throughout the country.
For example,
Boston, Chicago.
what would they otherwise be doing in those locations?
Federal facility protection.
So they're being pulled off of federal facility protection in order to go to the border and to take migrants to appointments.
The answer is yes. That's exactly what they're doing. This is the cascade effect, the domino effect of the disaster that is our border. That, again, is according to the Biden administration, the president, the vice president, the secretary of Homeland Security, everything's great. 100% secure. We have no problem down there. There's no border crisis. Oh, we have to pull cops from their assigned duties from around the country to protect federal buildings so that they can drive all of the illegal aliens on our dime back and forth to their appointments. But, by the way, when was the last time you got a federal driver to drive you to your medical appointment? Oh, well, who are you? You're just a tax-paying citizen. You don't get that kind of service. You got to come into this country illegally to get it.